Well, hello everyone from a television set as well as from outer space. Welcome, and we are so excited that you're here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about She Kills Monsters with our fabulous costume designer for the production, Kim Adams. Kim, hey, so good to see you.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm so glad you asked.
Of course, yeah. Thank you for being here. So
Absolutely.
unfortunately, y'all, this was originally supposed to be live, but Facebook and Zoom did not want to talk to each other tonight. So, unfortunately, we can't have the fun elements of, live comments and things like that. So I will try to ask as much as I can think of in my brain that people may want to know. And we'll just kind of go ahead and jump right into it. So,
Sweet.
why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I'm not a Georgia native. I'm originally from Arizona, but I've lived here longer than I lived in Arizona. My mother, the reason why I got into costuming in particularly is because my mother forced me at about the age of 12 to start taking sewing lessons against my will. And as you can imagine, 3 years of sewing, I was not a happy camper, but it has helped me as I've gotten older. I've been a part of Elm Street, oh my goodness, for at least 10, 11 years, ever since Olivia came in, auditioned for the Jungle Book. So she's been with y'all, I think since she was 7 or 8. So it's been at least 10 years. And I have worked on many productions. I was never the head costume designer to start with. I helped several people with the costumes. One of my favorites was The Wedding Singer that I did.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. And then Thoroughly Modern Millie was the other one that I worked on heavily. But this is the first one. Well, actually, technically, this is the second one. The first one that I was helping design, Orphe and the Book of Heroes, got postponed. So I'm still looking forward to hopefully being able to work on that along with Andrew.
Yes.
And but this is from this particular play was the bee's knees. So much so for me, I sent an audition tape, which I've never auditioned for anything before. So that tells you anything. And I was actually, Siobhan did everything because I couldn't get it to submit. And she was like, no, you have to. So she made me feel good. And so did Zachary. But when I got the phone call from Brian to be the costume designer, I was so excited. Because I had visions already of what I thought the characters should look like. Mainly because I've been playing D&D. I was a closet D&Der. I did it when it was not cool to be a D&D player. I started probably back in 1979, 80 was when I started playing because my brother got into it. So, and I lived through the whole satanic panic part of D&D. So, and absolutely, I've always had a love for it. It's so funny because I'm a diehard Critical Role fan, and to hear some of the guests come on and say, I played it when it was referred to as a D, not a D&D, or not as a D20. It was a D. You just rolled the die. So, but yeah, so I was just excited, and the play was fabulous. The actors did such a great job. Just outstanding. Probably the best production I've ever seen, because I've watched some of them that have been put on and performed, and oh my word, I can call them kids because I'm probably old enough to be their mom, but all of them, but just fabulous. It was fabulous. It was fantastic. Made me laugh, made me cry. It was great. It did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Yes, and yeah, I mean, we are just so thankful to have you, to have Olivia, to have the entire Adams family just involved and be a part of things. And that's crazy to think that, you started out, sewing at a young age, like not wanting
to do it.
And then like here you are like going and like like designing an entire production, you know, from like concept to creation.
Right. I didn't think I honestly, you know, you just don't, I don't know. I guess when something like that happens at such a young age, you don't think about what could come. You know, I don't know, but it's one of those things where never saw myself being able to come up with something like this. And it was so funny because working with Zachary and Danielle, oh my gosh, they were fabulous. And being able to glean from them what their thoughts and ideas were. I mean, you know, they're still young. And like I said, I was probably old enough to be their parent as well. So to be able to, I guess, kind of cast ages aside and the common goal and the love of absolutely being able to wrap your arms around the fact that the geekiness is now cool. It was just, I don't know, it was so much fun. And it just, who would have ever thought that the 90s would be an era?
Right. I mean, hey, the early 2000s are now becoming an era. Era too. Everyone is like, ooh, that's a time period now. Like we can, like you know, we can dress and be part of the era and that culture.
But what's so funny too, Justin, is you don't think about it, but certain things come back around, because there was a lot of some of the costume design for 1995 is actually starting to come back into play, because they refer to it as mom jeans or the high-waisted jeans, and some of that stuff is starting to come back again, which I think is just, it's really funny when you think about it. It's like everything kind of circles around in a big rotation.
Now, let's dive a little bit into the design aspect of She Kills Monsters. So, obviously, you touched on that it takes place in 1995. So
right.
we're getting those touches of the 90s in the real world, but then also we have the D&D world. And how much of a crossover, if any, is there? Like, do we get like, so when we're in the world of D&D, do we get kind of like a 90s flair to it, or is it more like we're thinking more like straight on fantasy?
No, okay, so what we had to do was, it was still, so I guess the best costume to describe that, or the best couple costumes to describe that, would be like the bugbears, the kobolds, and even Conan's costume, because so our actor, I had the actors have input. I allowed them to have input in the costumes that they had. So does Zachary. So because of that, what we ended up doing with Conan's costume, and I'll use him as an example, was he picked out, and I don't know if y'all are aware of this or not, but they did a remake with Jason. I can never remember Jason's last name, but the actor is Jason Samboa. Anyway, he picked out that one from 2011 was the remake of the Conan, and that was the outfit he picked out for me to kind of design along. Well, when I collaborated with Zach, I said, okay, look, if we're trying to stick to the 95 era, we can't use that, because our technology and our costume design and that kind of stuff was not that far along, or not where it is today anyway. And, part of that's all because of computers and everything. But with that being said, we had to pick from one of the original Conans that Arnold did. And so we chose the costume from the second Conan that had, I think Grace Slick was in it, and so was Red Sonja. And so because of that, that was the costume we picked, where he had on the long brown flowy like pants with the buttons in the bottom and the moccasins, and he just had the chest shield with the fur, and the fur across his midsection is what we did. And that was because that was more in line with what the designs were back in 1995. Even though it was still a fantasy, it was still fantasy, but the costume matched better to that time period, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
Right, with the 2011 production, it was more, there was more metal in it, which they wouldn't have had back then. It was just not something that they would have been indicative of who Conan the Barbarian was.
Yeah, no, so. And I think it's also really cool that, you know, you having so much experience in
Right,
D&D like really plays to your advantage
right.
when you're costuming. Um, was there a costume or character in particular that was your favorite to
Okay, so
design?
yes, I had two favorites, and believe it or not, my two favorites to do were the bugbears, and part of it was just because of the line that she does when Agnes is battling with her sister, and she doesn't realize how to play the game, and she uses her turn to analyze whether it's a bug or a bear, which I think is hysterical. But those were so much fun because if you look in the original D&D books of what a bugbear looks like, a bugbear was a great big, he looks like a great big hairy humanoid. He's not really a bear and he's not really a bug, but he has paws like a bear, but he stands erect and he has paws like a bear on his hands, but his feet, he could wear boots. So the concept was with the great big, and they had big noses, but they had small little eyes. Well, we couldn't really make small little eyes, hence the bug part of them, and small ears. So we couldn't make the eyes look too small. So instead I came up with the idea of these big, thick, aviator like type things that the actors wore around their heads, and they had spikes coming out of them. So that was kind of the idea, the concept of that, and it was a lot of fun to do. And then the other one, my favorite costume of all, and my husband Chris wasn't happy with it because there was glitter everywhere, was Farah.
Yeah.
Farah was my second favorite costume. So, and it was because there's a lot of glitter involved, and you know us girls, Justin, we like our glitter. So that's why.
Who doesn't love I mean, your husband, I guess,
My
doesn't
husband
appreciate the
doesn't,
glitter as much as we do.
let's just say we're sparkling a lot around the Adams house for a while. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, both of those costumes. So if you have not seen the production, go ahead and do it and look out for those two costumes in particular, the bugbears, because they look really cool, and then also Farrah the Fairy, because there's a ton of elements in there that I don't want to give a ton away.
It was
but
awesome.
like, her shoes are really cool.
I know, her shoes are so cool. They are so cool. But it was just, it was so much fun. Justin, the actors and the actresses were just fabulous to work with. They really were. And, like I said, I've only really costumed a couple of plays for Elm Street, and I was always the assistant costumer. So I wasn't really there with the fittings and stuff of the actors and the actresses, but from watching and learning from other people and being able to glean off of them, the actors are not going to be able to perform comfortably if they're not comfortable in the costumes that they're wearing. So it was very important to me to make sure that they had an input so that they were comfortable in what they were wearing. So that was really, that was the big key. And all of them, I hope and I believe that all of them were not afraid to tell me when they were uncomfortable in something.
Yeah, no, and I think that shows. I mean, especially for some of the female characters in the show, because one of the things that I really like about this show is just how powerful the female roles are, and you see that in the costumes too. Like, they're not wearing like frilly dresses or anything like that. Like they're wearing tights, and they're being able to accentuate their curves,
Right,
things like that. And I think that's really important, and I think that's very telling of you having a dialogue with those actors, and finding that line of, okay, what is comfortable
right,
for you, but also feels right for the character, and what we're trying to come across.
right, exactly. What we're trying to exemplify. And I remember the hardest costume, the one I was most excited about, was an epic fail, the original costume that we picked out for, and you'll have to forgive me because I don't remember all the actors' names, but I remember their characters' names, which is just sad in itself. But Calliope's character, Calliope, her costume, we had these grand pictures and grand illusions of what her costume was going to look like, and it ended up being an epic fail because when I took a chance and ordered the material, and when the material got here, it wasn't a like a rayon chiffon kind of flowing, which is what we needed, and that's not what it was. So we had to back up and punt. And when we did, we backed up. When we backed up and punted, we got the actor involved and asked her, what are you looking for? What do you think this character, how does her power and how does how does she feel? And so she was the one that actually came forward and said, I think it's supposed to be a long flowy skirt with long splits up the centers, and I'm telling you what, and she said a tight bodice with where we show a little bit of cleavage, and it just worked out. It was awesome. It was so awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, all of your costumes, Kim, look so fantastic. Like,
awesome.
I cannot get over just how great they all look. So, you know, you had talked about that this was your first time designing. So what was that process like for you? Or, you know, kind of how did you go about saying, okay, I have this character, you know, we're at like the beginning of the rehearsal process to, okay, now it's like, you know, production time for like them to like actually wear said piece.
Right. Okay. So the thing about this particular play, Justin, it was, and I'm not taking away from any other designer who costumes a play. It's a big undertaking. And I've learned from some of the best there at Elm Street. However, with that being said, this play was so different because it was layered. And what I mean by layered is you had actors with multiple time changes, if you will. So there were actors that had to, pardon me, play in the fantasy game of D&D, but then they ended up having to be what we would consider real world, if you will. So because of that, we had to figure out how we could get them to change quick enough that they could play that dual role and still have their set costumes from the fantasy world up underneath what they were going to transition into. So that's where the actors actually came into play and helped me out considerably. So I have to give them credit in this too, because they went and raided their closets and found jeans and shirts that worked for the time period of 1995. And like I said, the nice thing about that is that everything comes around full circle. So we're back again to an era where jeans and t-shirts are acceptable along with the white Keds or the with their Skechers now, but some people wear Sperry's. So back then they weren't Sperry's or Skechers, but you know, the trend caught on. So kudos to them that they realized what things they could pull on really quick to wear over their costumes without having to break everything down.
Yeah, no, I think that's talks a lot about the collaborative nature.
Absolutely.
That is theater. Like you need, like it really is a team effort. Like everyone has to be able to work together in order to come up with, you know, the finished product.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially in Danielle was such a huge help as far as stage manager goes, because you know, Danielle has done this professionally, and so for her to come in and do this on a community level basis and be able to communicate with somebody like myself that's not abreast to what it's like to work in a commercial environment, if you will, and be able to make me still feel comfortable about the job I'm doing, that says a lot about that person. And it's one of those things, Justin, again, the director, Zachary, the stage manager, Danielle, and the actors themselves, if you don't have a team collectively that doesn't gel, it's going to be hard to put on stage something that you can tell is not something that the actors just want to get over, done, finished. They don't want to. I don't know if that makes sense, but I mean, I enjoyed it so much when I saw it. And so much so that I purchased 4 or 5 more so friends and family could see it, because it was a great play. It was just awesome.
Yeah, and like I said, we're super grateful to have you be a part of it and be a part of that design process. For anyone who does not have their pass yet, because time is ticking.
Oh yes.
What would you say to people to let them know that, hey, you need to check this out, or as from a designer eye, what kind of things can we look for when doing?
Well, so from a designer's perspective, from a design perspective, and through costume as well as props, oh my gosh, and the actors themselves, wow, that's big. You have to see the play, first of all, because it is absolutely hysterical. It makes you laugh, it makes you think, it makes you cry, and it makes you happy. It makes you joyful when you leave, or well, not when you leave, but when you're done watching it, it makes you joyful. It's just, and the storyline, even though it's D&D, it's not necessarily about the D&D, which is so cool, because it's about the storyline, and it's a layered play. It's just layered. There's layers upon layers. If you don't see it, you're missing out on a lot of cool stuff. Not just the costumes, but the design of the play, the actors and the actresses that put time and effort into it. Oh my gosh, absolutely hysterical, and they had a great time doing it. You can tell when you go and see, even when you go see a real live performance at the Fox, or if you've been fortunate enough to see it at Broadway, you can tell when people gel, because you leave feeling that kind of atmosphere, that they've had a great time with the performance. And that's kind of the way I have felt watching this. And it's not just because my kid's in it either. I love what Elm Street is trying to do within the community, and so that's why I enjoy doing this, and that's why I enjoy watching it. I think my favorite part, in all honesty, Justin, out of the entire play, had to be the whole scene with the cube, the Jello cube. That just, I mean, even Chris, sitting next to Chris, he actually belly laughed when you hear, it's just fun. It was just fun. And I think Elm Street is doing a great thing. I mean, it's touching all bases, and I know they got more coming up in the future. I just love the way that they reach everybody within the community. It's not limited, if that makes any sense at all.
No, that totally makes sense. And if that has not convinced you to come out and check out She Kills Monsters, that you can do from the comfort of your own home. Like literally, you just go on your computer, your cellular device, whatever it is, and you go and you check it out.
I've watched it 2 or 3 times already, so
and you
loved it.
Yes, so you can watch it like 2-3 times, as many times as you want. You have until Sunday to get your show pass, so please go ahead and do that. But Kim, again, I want to thank you so much for taking time and doing this and being involved in the show too.
Absolutely. Thank y'all so much I know I've said it over and over again, but thank y'all so much for even considering me to be a part of this. it was a blessing and a privilege, and absolutely enjoy all of y'all at Elm Street, all that y'all do. I've always got y'all's back, always.
We've got your back too, Cam.
Thank you, Justin, so much.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you when we see you. Until then, please stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane, and we will talk to you later. Yes, amen.
Amen.